We are going to be covering responsive web design this week. And you've already learned a little bit because Flexbox is responsive design. I've also been including how to make your images responsive, how width of 100% is responsive as a quick reminder. And so we've been kind of incorporating responsive aspects throughout the semester, but what you're going to be learning today are additional layouts that are responsive layouts. And these layouts are things that you are going to be using in all of your future web programming classes. So what we're going to be learning this week is really important. And I have kind of split it into two different parts. The first part talks about the mobile web and responsive design in general. So you understand that basically responsive design, no matter what device you are viewing the page on, responsive design makes it look good. That's why it's so important. And we discuss what a viewport is and how a page looks when you don't use it versus when you do. Then we get into some kind of design rules for mobile web, talk about responsive lengths, look at some examples, and then we talk about the different layouts. So there's grid view, which is what this document is going to cover. And the other layout has a similar name, but it is quite different. It is CSS grid. And the second reading covers that. So this first one is called grid view. And so we talk about how to set up grid view. And basically all it does is it divides your page into columns. Okay, so that's pretty much it. So here in your CSS, you have classes for 12 different columns. And then you just figure out in a page if you wanted one content area to be 1/4 of the page and the other content area to be 3/4, you would set it to column 3 and 9. Okay, column 3 is 25%, and then column 9 is 75%, and together they equal 100%. Okay, so you're going to be working with this. You are going to learn about media queries, which is one way that you can handle different device sizes. With media queries, you're typically looking at a device width, and then you're changing the layout a little bit depending on the width of the device. And a rule of thumb that we are going to be following is design for mobile first. The idea is if it looks good on a mobile device, it's going to look good on a larger screen too. You are going to learn how to do printer-friendly pages. Printer-friendly pages are black and white, no graphics. Things are left aligned. They're the full width of the page. So you're going to learn how to change your CSS for printer-friendly. Also how to add page breaks for printing. And because we are going to be doing printer-friendly pages, you end up having to include multiple style sheets. So how do you do that? And you'll notice that for live content, we have the media set to screen. For print, the media is set to print. So you are only going to see a printer-friendly CSS when you press Control and P to get into print preview. We go through a little review on responsive images, how to make your images responsive so that they resize appropriately on different devices, how to do the videos. And then finally, we get into this SEO portion, which helps you market your page. So a lot of content in this first one. The second one, we are going to cover CSS Grid. So the first one is Grid View, totally different than CSS Grid. And that's why I separated them. I did not want you to get confused between the two. So I would actually recommend doing Grid View on one day, waiting a day or two, and then doing CSS Grid. So CSS Grid is a grid-based layout. This is new. It's new in CSS. I've got a graphic here that kind of shows you how this layout works. And this document basically describes how to use it. And quite honestly, I love this layout. I think it creates really nice looking pages and it gives you a lot of control over how the page is laid out. So this document kind of goes through all of the information that you need to know about CSS Grid. And it is a little bit more complicated than the other layouts, which again is why I separated it into its own lecture demo. Then you have the textbook assignment. And you're going to convert an existing site to a responsive grid view. So this is grid view, not CSS Grid. Okay, so the key with grid view is getting all these column classes into your page or your CSS. Then you are going to download a site. This is a complete site. So you're going to download it. You have to unzip it. And then you are going to be adding the CSS for this site. And I did try to put in some comments here so you can see what it's doing. We have some media breakpoints here. So this first one, which is the default, is for mobile phones. And then depending on the width of the screen, it will go into the code for tablets or for desktops. Then you can see that we had to break the page into columns and we've got it broken into rows. And once you are done with the site, you are going to make it printer friendly. So there is a link for printer friendly here and the code that you need for that printer friendly CSS. And I want to emphasize that this is in addition to the other link. Do not replace the screen link with the print link because then when you go to the site, all you're going to see is the print CSS. And we should not see the print CSS unless we press Control and the letter P for print. Okay? When you're on a web page like this, you should see the screen CSS. Okay, so make sure that you have two links, one for the screen and one for the print. Then with that Zen site, we are going to insert attributes for SEO. We are going to do a description, we'll do the keywords, and then we're going to try to work the word Zen Spa into alternate text. Then we are going to kind of simulate mobile devices. You'll learn how to do that. And make sure you watch the video because it shows you how to use that Chrome developer panel. And that is where we're going to go to kind of simulate viewing our page on different devices. Then task 7, this is where you're going to learn or practice using CSS Grid, which is the new one. So I've got like a Dr. Seuss site that you are going to download. And then you are going to be changing the layout using CSS Grid. So the layout is going to change depending on, if it's mobile or desktop. So if it's mobile, it's going to look something like that. And these are graphics, okay? And if it's a desktop, it should look something like this, or tablet, excuse me. And if it's a desktop, it's going to look like this. So you're going to have different layouts depending on the device that you are viewing it in. So this kind of goes through setting up all of that code. And then once you're done, you're going to transfer your Acme folder, your Zen folder, and the Seuss folder to the web. Make sure you check those pages live because sometimes things do work differently than they do offline. And when you're done with that, you will be working on a lab assignment. This lab assignment, whatever you create for this, you can use as a foundation for your term project. So you can double dip this. I have a page that I did in Grid View and I also did in CSS Grid. Same page, but if you look at the source, okay, and you look at the CSS, okay, you will notice that in here, I've got the grid CSS, and in the other one, I have grid view. Okay, so I incorporated each type. So you can look at that for ideas and make sure you incorporate the minimum requirements. And as I said, this can be a basis for your term project. So I would take your time on this and do a good job, and then you can use that as a foundation for that term project, and that will save you a ton of time. So pick a topic that you are interested in and you really like because you're going to be able to reuse it. When you're done, you're going to post to the discussion forum. And basically, I want to know about your design. So post a link to your page, indicate who the audience is, what the purpose is, and how you decided on the design and the layout. So if you chose grid view, why did you pick grid view? If you chose CSS grid, why did you pick that one? Okay, and then I want you to review each other's and reply. So it is kind of a big week. We are covering a lot this week, but we are nearing the end. We have this week and we have lesson 12, which gets into some very basic JavaScript. Lesson 12, I will also have a review of the 3 responsive formats. So Flexbox, CSS Grid, and Grid View. And you will take one page that I'm going to give you and display it in the 3 different formats, in addition to doing some very simple JavaScript. Okay, and that's pretty much it as far as content for this course. The only other thing you're going to be working on is the term project. And if you basically start it here in lesson 11, it will not take you long to complete it. Let me know if you have any questions or if you're confused about anything, and I look forward to seeing what you guys create.